It's going to be part of it.
Justice and CJ? I mean, criminology and CJ?
Justice, right.
Okay, and what else?
Appreciate that everyone could come out today to help us celebrate 10-year anniversary of me doing the show, but also an opportunity to help these future police officers to become better officers as it relates to community and police involvement. What I'd like to do before I even begin is to let everybody know, personally, I just want to give thanks to the Almighty that we're here safe and sound. I also want to make sure to thank St. Louis University for allowing us to be here today on a beautiful, hot day. I'm glad we're doing it inside rather than outside. We're going to address some issues that relate to police and community involvement, or always as planned. Now, I will be one of the first to say that there are a lot of good police officers out there. There are a lot of officers out there doing the right thing. There's officers who are working as we speak. I've often said that police work is one of the few professions where individuals have an opportunity to risk their lives to help people they don't even know. That's a very noble endeavor. But there's also another side of that. There's a side of that underbelly, if you will, when that becomes abusive, when that becomes a situation when police officers are not doing the right thing. And it is because of that that we need to have dialogue with the community, and we need to impact those individuals who are going to be involved in law enforcement training, because they will carry the torch forward and impact your children and maybe grandchildren down the road. So with that said, I'd like to give each panelist an opportunity to give 30 seconds.
Community in St. Louis. I'm also an assistant professor at Southern Illinois University in Edwardsville. I'm a former St. Louis City and St. Louis County police officer. I was the first African-American police officer to work in E-Mail for St. Louis County in 1974. I've seen both sides of this. There's plenty of blame to put on many parties. But the idea is hopefully provide some dialogue. I've seen the best of policing, and unfortunately, I've seen the very worst of policing. If anyone doesn't think there is racial bias in policing, hopefully what we talk about today will elucidate some of those issues.
Audience, I've had the pleasure of knowing most of these guys. I've known the panel for long enough to know that this is going to be a very interesting discussion. I'm a former St. Louis City police officer. I was a police officer for 5 years, from 1994 to 1999. I resigned my position primarily because I became so disillusioned with looking at how the criminal justice process in general and some law enforcement professionals in particular function in African American communities, Hispanic communities, even in some poor white communities. I got tired of experiencing the difference in how that process is delivered to different segments of our communities. It is a difficult discussion to have. It's tough for people from inside of law enforcement to come to the table and be prepared to acknowledge that our system needs work.
Police for the City, University City Police Department. If you don't really know much about University City, we're a municipality that's located on the west side of St. Louis City. We're a unique little small hamlet. We're a population of about 37,000 people, but we're a very diverse community. We have one of the probably more far-reaching population that you've ever meet. We're just a small version of St. Louis City. What I'm here for is to listen and to learn. Maybe I can take some things from the panel as well as you that I can go back to my own place of employment, and maybe we can do things a little bit better. Or we can also, in retrospect, look at ourselves and make sure that we're doing everything that we need to do to make sure that we're doing the job that our community wants us to do.
I'm a faculty member at the University of Missouri St. Louis in the Department of Criminology and Criminal Justice. And having said that, the challenge for me in my opening remarks is going to be to stay seated because professors like to stand up and also like to talk, which some people in the audience may be well aware of. I want to talk a little bit from a research perspective and some current research that I, along with two of my colleagues at the university, are currently conducting. And basically, it examines adolescents' perceptions of the demeanor of police officers during their interactions with police officers and the effects that they have on young people's perceptions of abuse. And those forms of abuse are specifically verbal abuse. And researchers have noted that this type of abuse is much harder for police administrators to identify, to investigate, to substantiate and control, but nonetheless has serious implications for police and community.
enforcement inappropriately considers race, ethnicity, or culture in deciding with whom or how to intervene in an enforcement capacity. The term racial profiling many times limits these encounters to only traffic-related activities, when more often than not, the problem runs much deeper. The fundamental goal of today's program is to expose, examine, and discuss the patterns of behavior that police officers exhibit when they engage in racially and culturally biased policing. Now, with that being said, I began to think about how to really begin the program. How do I begin the program on such a very sensitive topic? How do I begin to establish the dialogue, not only within the community, but within our panelists as well? And lo and behold, the St. Louis American had a very interesting article. Twins alleged beating at hands of 2 St. Louis police officers. Now, I read the article, I read it again, and it brought about some very interesting ideas. For those who may not be aware of this, let me just give a brief summation. These 2 twin brothers who received a couple dollars from their grandmother to go to the corner store. Great-grandmother. Gave them a couple bucks to head to the store. Grandma also told them, look guys, be aware of male prostitutes in the area. There are guys in the area who need you on. Alleys, the vehicle kept turning up, so the 2 young men began to take off trying to get away from his vehicle. Before they could get too far, a police car cut them off. The brothers at one point split up, one went one way, another went the other. They said they were scared. Well, the 2 police officers allegedly caught the first brother. The guy said, hey, I give up. He put his hands on his head, got on his knees. He claimed at that time the officer struck him in the back. And then took his pistol and put it to the back of his head and said, what are you doing running?